All right. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you guys had a good break. I'm going to just quickly review the agenda. So far, we're on time. I appreciate everyone being brief with your presentations and timely. For the next presentation, I'd like to welcome back my colleague Andrew Murka from the California Air Resources Board.
Hello, everyone. Again, I'm Andrew Murka from the California Air Resources Board, and I work with Gary Ehrman on the data analysis and writing of the 2025 Joint Report. We also worked together to revise and issue the reporting template last year. As we review the reporting submittals and prepare the 2025 Joint Report, we had identified a few ways to improve the reporting template. In particular, when we developed the annual list of questions and comments to gas companies in July, we noticed that some issues could be addressed with revisions to the template. However, if possible, we do not revise and reissue the 9 appendices of the template during the reporting cycle. Instead, we compile a list of the proposed changes and discuss them at the winter workshop prior to issuing an updated version of the reporting template in March. In this presentation, I will discuss CPC's and CARB's proposed changes to the 2026 reporting template and procedures. Today's presentation on the proposed changes to the 2026 reporting template and procedures will discuss proposals and changes in 3 areas. First, for the data submittal of all files, we request the file size per appendix be limited to 30 megabytes. We also request all appendices be submitted as Excel spreadsheets rather than PDFs. Second, for the Appendix 8 summary appendix, we propose to change the definition of unusual large leaks from requiring the leak must have a duration of more than 24 hours to no longer having that requirement. Third, for the Appendix 9 emission factor appendix, we would like to inform all utilities of a change that we made last year in October. This change is in regards to the emission factor for leaker-based reporting of transmission, metering and regulating stations, and distribution metering and regulating stations. Finally, at the conclusion of this presentation, I will share key dates for the 2026 and GLA reporting. In regards to the data submittal, CPC and CARB have the following requests. We request the file size per appendix submittal be limited to 30 megabytes. This is due to last year receiving a file that exceeded 60 megabytes. This size caused a challenge to those staff who needed to transfer the file over email to other staff working on the data analysis for the 2025 Joint Report. However, if there are special circumstances that require the file size to be larger than 30 megabytes, please correspond with staff. Next, we request all appendices be submitted as Excel spreadsheets. For the most part, they already are submitted as Excel spreadsheets. However, sometimes we receive only PDFs of the appendices. Consequently, staff need to further correspond with the utility to send an Excel version. Finally, the email on March 31st, 2026 will state this, as well as the data request instructions will be updated with the highlighted language, which you can see in the image below. I will now move on to Appendix 8. For Appendix 8, which is the summary appendix, CPC and CARB would like to discuss with you a revision the current definition of the unusual large leak category. This discussion can take place at the conclusion of this presentation as well as over email. I will read for you the current definition. Any event at a gas storage facility or gas transmission system that results in the uncontrollable release of natural gas to the atmosphere for more than 24 hours. Last year, in the preparation of the 2025 Joint Report, we received a request to designate a release of natural gas due to a mudslide that was repaired within 2.5 hours in the unusual large leak category. CPC management approved of this request. However, we would need to revise the definition. This can be accomplished by removing a final link of the definition, but perhaps further clarification can be provided. This proposed definition is shown on the next slide. Here's the proposed definition. Any event at a gas storage facility or gas transmission system that results in the uncontrollable release of natural gas to the atmosphere that would disrupt the year-over-year emission analysis. Please describe the circumstances of the event, such as the cause, the magnitude, and means of stopping the emission release to CPC CARB. Then management at CPC CARB will review the petition to use this categorical exemption and inform the utility of that decision. The proposed definition has removed the requirement that the event exceed 24 hours and further describes the process of approval. If utilities have a revision to the proposed language, please correspond over email with Gary and me. We can discuss at the conclusion of this presentation. Next, for Appendix 9, the emission factor appendix, we will describe the change that occurred in October 2025 to update the emission factors for beaker-based reporting for transmission, metering, and regulating stations, Appendix 2, and distribution and metering and regulating stations, Appendix 5. In the preparation of the 2025 joint report, CPC and CARB received proposals by PG&E and Pacific Gas to revise their Appendix 2 transmission M&R stations emissions reporting, as well as SDG&E to revise their Appendix 5 distribution M&R stations. To facilitate this revision, the latest emission factors were used from the website shown on the slide. The image on the left is from the website and shows the emission factors for transmission M&R stations with the equipment components listed. The columns specify whether the survey methodology meets the criteria for method 21. Since non-method 21 were selected by utilities, staff then performed the calculation shown here to translate the units from SCF of total hydrocarbon per hour to MSCF of natural gas per day. To provide you with an example, the emission factor for valves is listed as 10.5 SCF total hydrocarbon per hour. After this calculation is performed, the result is 0.257 MSCF natural gas per day. On the next slide, you will see this value of 0.257 on the revised appendix. As pointed out by the blue arrow, here is the value of 0.257 from the previous slide. Here you can see a side-by-side comparison of the previous emission factors that were sent out in March of last year with the revision that took place in October. This image describes the transmission M&R stations. On the next two slides, the distribution M&R stations are described. This slide shows the source of the emission factors for distribution M&R stations, which is table W-6. This differs from transmission M&R stations, which are from table W-4. Again, here an example of the calculation that was used for valves, which results in an emission factor of 0.071 MSCF of natural gas per day. As pointed out by the blue arrow, here's the value of 0.071 from the previous slide. This image also shows the side-by-side comparison for distribution M&R station emission factors for last year. Finally, as a reminder, here is the timeline showing the key dates for the 2026 NGLA reporting. Prior to March 31st, CPC and CARB staff will correspond with utilities about finalizing the reporting template changes mentioned in these slides. On March 31st, CPC will send reporting template to gas companies. On June 15th, emission reports from gas companies are due to CPUC. In July, CPC and CARB will send a list of follow-up questions and comments to gas companies. On August 31st, CPC and CARB staff have an internal deadline to finalize data. On November 16th, CPC will send the draft report to gas companies for review. By December 31st, CPC will publish the final joint report. This concludes my presentation, and I can address comments and questions at this time. Yes.
Shrikant from PG&E. So some of our files are over that 30 meg limit. We can get some exceptions on them, especially Appendix 6 for us.
Yes, we worked with that appendix. We noticed there were nested if functions, and there was many rows for that file. So we worked with that file to just copy and paste it as a value without showing the formula. So that was kind of how we worked with that.
Okay.
Then as long as the formula was available separately, then yeah.
That should be, okay.
Maybe an additional worksheet that shows the formula would be all that we need.
Yeah, yeah,
And then to know that it was copy paste, the values were copy pasted in that one column.
okay.
Yes.
If you go back to the slide where you're showing the calculations of total hydrocarbons, seems like using the methane.
The conversion from the
Conversion, yeah.
total hydro.
Yeah, seems like about 0.934 is the fraction of methane in natural gas, not total hydrocarbons. It would be slightly higher.
There was a variety of emails correspondence. So you can see 0.934 here and 0.98 here. So the result had to do with the correspondence.
Yeah, actually, if you look at the very top of those tables, they are showing values. In fact, so on this one, you'll see it says total hydrocarbon per hour per component. And then if you could return to the other one, yeah. At the very top, you'll see emission factor, standard cubic feet methane per hour per component. So that is why we use a different conversion factor.
So actually our labeling may be a little in
Yeah.
error here.
Yeah, so the error would be just that the labeling should say methane instead of THC.
Yeah, we're pretty convinced, folks have generally, reported approximately 93% methane per natural gas. And then, for the total hydrocarbons, I think I sent out, or one of us sent out some questions last year, and we kind of averaged what both SoCal and PG&E were saying was their total hydrocarbon versus gas relationship was about 98%. Essentially, the percent was like non-combustible, non-natural gas components in the gas. So yeah, good. Thanks for pointing out that. Just kind of a typo on our slide, I think.
Yes.
So I've asked for the unusual large leaks, is there a deadline for the utilities to provide that information to CPC and CARB for you all to assess and then get determination whether it's in that category or not?
I would assume the March 31st deadline.
Oh, I think there's two. One question would be like, when do we want to have feedback on our proposed definition change? But the other is like, when is the deadline for telling us you think you have an unusual large leak? Yeah. Well, you're going to be reporting on something that happened in the previous year. So at the time you're preparing your submission, which is due in June, right? I would expect you would be thinking about, uh-oh, that looks like it's an unusual large leak. So I think the better time to do that would just be at the time you're reporting your results in June, just identifies like, hey, you know, this looks like it's an unusual large leak. We want you to consider it that way. And then that would give us the time between June and, you know, October is typically when we finalize all of our evaluations and start actually writing the report. So that's yeah, we hadn't talked about that specifically, obviously. That's just my shoot from the hip. I think that would be a good idea to flag it in your June submission.
Certainly, if you include that rationale in the supplemental questionnaire answer document that you provide, that would be very helpful. That'd probably be the most appropriate place.
Any thoughts about this proposed definition of changing, you know, the parameters of what would be considered an unusual large leak? Or, you know, you can go home and think about it and tell us later if you want.
I mean, I think changing it makes sense, right? Because as we saw last year, the 24 hours doesn't always, sometimes you can have a very unusually large emission that's not.
Right.
Yeah.
I think you had a question.
A different topic. I don't know if anyone has any follow-up on this one. No, okay. I did have a question regarding Appendix 9. I was reviewing Appendix 9 and the emission factor specifically for control valves. That would be table W1 within subpart W. And I noticed that for transmission and Menard station, we have, correct conversion, 0.720 for continuous high bleed. And I apologize, guys, this is Isaac Marcia from PG&E. And so my question is, I think there should be an update of the other sections to align with the table W1. From what I'm seeing, it looks like we might be using some older emission factor for the high bleed. I'm seeing, 0.45 MSCF per day per device. And my understanding of table the subpart W is that they should be aligned with what appendix 2 is currently showing at 0.72 for high bleed. And I think there's going to be a slight discrepancy for the other intermittent and then continuous low as well. So maybe something we can follow up via email later.
Yeah.
Just want to kind of point that out that my understanding is for transmission pipeline compressor stations and MNR stations, they should have the same emission factor for the control buttons.
Yeah, send us that request. We'll chew it over. I remember last year we were trying to evaluate the these other EPA table changed values, and we were actually trying to communicate with the EPA to get some background on how they made the decision to change those numbers, and there was very little response. I think probably a lot of them may have gotten laid off or something.
Yeah, and I did find a paper from the EPA from a couple years back breaking down some of the control valve data, I think, so maybe I might be able to add that. to
Please,
the-
yeah, that'd be great.
as well. So, but yeah, I just want to comment that on.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any other questions? Gary, back to you.
All right, thank you for that presentation. Next, I would like to invite a presenter from SoCal Gas. For the next presentation. Would you like to?
Yeah.
All right, give me a moment then. Distribution maintenance services, is that it? Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dan Kassane. I'm with Southern California Gas Company. I've been with SoCal Gas almost 27 years now. And prior to that, I was with a gas transmission and storage company based in Detroit, Michigan. I looked at the temperature in Detroit earlier. It was 2 degrees. So I'm very happy to be here in California. Most of my career with SoCal Gas has been with environmental services. So I'm well versed kind of in the areas of hazardous waste, water quality, natural resources, CEQA, NEPA, that type of thing. But I always wanted to do something related to air quality and helping the company reduce emissions, climate change. So when this position opened up a couple of years ago, it was a perfect fit for where I wanted to be in my career. And so here I am. And today I am going to give you an overview of a tool we developed to help with our distribution main and leak tracking program. It's called we call it our dashboard. Just playing the right button. So we launched our dashboard in 2023. And what it is, it's a tool that interfaces with other databases that we use to track our leaks. And it shows us the leaks detected, the leaks fixed, displays them in GIS. We're also developing a program that's going to help us identify what we call our decision tree positive leaks and our larger leaks. And it's quickly become really a tool that's much more user friendly. A lot of our operating groups now are turning to our dashboard to help them manage their leak abatement program as well. And what it is, it's programmed. So our dashboard is programmed to retrieve data on leaks from all the databases that we're using to track and manage this data. And it displays it in a more user friendly manner, and you can quickly see the information that you're looking for. You can get to it much faster. We're a large company. We're always plugging away at our inventory of leaks, but we have a lot of people who we track all of our leaks start to finish. And we have a lot of people who do this. So we have survey technicians, we have leak repair technicians, we have project execution teams who plan and manage leak repairs. And all of these people are tracking data, everything they do related to that leak. And over the years, we've gotten away from using disjointed databases, or everybody having information stored on their hard drive, Excel spreadsheets, that sort of thing. And we now are using to the point where we are tracking all of this database in pretty much one large database. And I won't call this database by name, but you can get the data in, but getting the data out of it can be, sometimes you're in for a fight. And so this tool, like in the past, when you wanted to get certain data out of the database, so you would have to run a report, a canned report. And then that report really would spit out this really mammoth sized report with pulling all of the fields in the database. So you would end up with this Excel spreadsheet with columns that just went on for days, and it's probably 50 some columns. And it's all information that needs to be tracked, about this leak from the point that it's detected to the point that it's repaired. But more often than not, the data that you need really is probably just a small subset of that. So this tool interfaces with that larger database and gives you the information. Like most of the time, for me, I need to see, when was this leak detected? What's the status of it? How old is this leak? If it hasn't been repaired, within a certain amount of time, what's going on with that leak. So I can quickly, access our dashboard, and I can get to that information real quick. Whereas, in the past, I would have to rerun that report, rerun the canned report. Then I would have to hide all the columns I didn't need. And then by the next day, that data was already outdated because people are constantly entering data. So this interface with the database, it updates, information in real time. So you're always looking at the most current data. And it's really, it's helped, it's helped me tremendously. It's helped a lot of the folks in our operating groups are managing these leak abatement programs. It's helped them as well. They can keep an eye on their inventory at all the time. We can always drill down on leaks to see what's going on. So we've realized, a lot of really nice benefits from developing this program. Another feature is it's also every time that we detect a leak, we geocode that leak, and then it gets put into our GIS system. So this tool also interfaces with our GIS system, so you can display all of your leaks geographically. So this is really a nice feature to have too, because you can look and you can see the leak density of certain areas, and you can drill down into that. So if you see like a cluster of leaks, you want to kind of take a closer look at that. There may be something going on there. Maybe there's something that you need to look at with your infrastructure. You need to look at a capital main replacement or something that's going on in that area. So that's really a nice feature of it. And also, when you see any specific leak in GIS, you can drill down on that specific leak also. You can see the history of that leak, when it was detected, what's going on with the repair. So anything you want to know about it. So overall, the dashboard has really, it's helped us become more efficient. No more manual tracking. We can always look at aging inventory reports. So if we see, leaks that are getting older, we can really find out what is going on with that leak. It's also can flag leaks that have a higher emissions volume, and kind of we're developing the next phase of this program to help with that. I'll talk about that in a second. And then also displaying the leaks geographically and see where they are. You can always keep an eye on what's going on throughout your system. The next phase of this program that's in develop, we call it our DT Plus dashboard. What that stands for, it's decision tree positive. And so every time a leak is detected by a survey technician, they go through what's called a decision tree. It's basically a flow chart. So whether the leak is detected and they detect concentration at the paved surface or through a bell hole, or maybe it's a cracked surface, but they're detecting methane from that. Depending on the level of methane they're detecting, that leak is assigned a code as to whether it's like potentially a larger leak. So we'll call it a PLL. But really what's done, you went through the dashboard and you get to the end, it's positive. So it's telling you, yeah, this is potentially a large leak. So at that point, then we want to move that leak, give that leak priority. So we want to try to move it up in the queue and repair it as soon as possible. By doing so, that's going to give us, it's going to give us the most bang for a buck, but it makes sense. You identify a leak, potentially a higher emitting leak, you want to fix that first. So this dashboard, it's going to pull all that information together and it's going to display, it's going to tell us where we have all of these larger leaks in our system. We can break it down every which way, company-wide, by location. And one thing that, what we've used it the most for is we look and we see, okay, we have potentially large leaks in this area. What else is going on in that area? Like, what municipality is that in? And is that a municipality that we've worked with that we can contact and say, okay, we have this potentially larger leak. We would like to expedite the permitting of this. And we have gotten a lot of cooperation from the municipalities doing this. We'll delineate the repair, the scope. A lot of times it's the same. We may already have application in for permits with that municipality that we can add this to it. So get a more streamlined approach to the permitting. So by doing this, that's usually the biggest obstacle to any permit repair is getting your permits from the municipality. So this is going to help us streamline that. Wherever there's an opportunity to bundle the permitting, we'll identify that quickly and move forward with it. And so I said, as I mentioned, this is in development. The beta version is looking real good. So we're expecting to have this probably rolled out probably by the end of the second quarter, if not sooner. And we're gonna do a pilot program this year where we're gonna set a goal where whenever we identify one of these potentially larger leaks, we're gonna try to get that fixed in 75 days or less. And that's an ambitious goal, but we think with this tool that it's something that we may be able to achieve. So just to conclude, I've been part of programs where we've developed databases, tools like this in-house, and they haven't always been as effective. This is the first one I've worked with where it's really has made my life easier. So it's been really a positive thing so far. So with that, I'll open it up to questions.
I have a few, but I let
Yeah.
others go first. Wynn's jumped in here. Go ahead, Wynn.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Wayne with CARP. On your second slide,
This one?
the second one, dashboard. Yeah, leak dashboard. Okay. Can you explain a little bit about your second bullet there? Cracks, leaks, mitigated. I thought after you mitigated, you probably not going to track it anymore. If you still do, what kind of issue that you're trying to check or follow
Oh,
up?
yeah. Yeah. So really this, it refers to, the leaks that have been. So it'll give us a count of how many leaks have been detected. You can give it a range, you want to say like, how many have we fixed so far this year? And it'll give you that count. So, and just because a leak is fixed doesn't mean it's going to ever go away from our system, because we always want to be able to go back, take a look at what happened with that leak if somebody has a question about it. So, but that really refers to the leaks that have been fixed.
I agree. So in this case, sometimes you still need to send people out to double check whether the fixing process done properly or not. So that's my next question. So you still need to survey the territory. You still need to follow up what is going on. Otherwise, nothing going to fit into your dashboard or data, so that you can have a really up-to-date information about what is going on in the field. So my question to you, beside the one you survey, sometimes you also have the area that you cannot survey that year. So even if you haven't done the survey in certain area, doesn't mean that you don't have any leaks. Any information or somehow your TT plus going to estimate, okay, even though we haven't surveyed this territory, we probably know there's some estimate of number of leaks in the unsurveyed territory.
So, a leak survey just gives you a snapshot of what's going on, on that particular day. So that can change it at any time. So for us, yes, we are, I'm not sure I'm answering the question right, but we are doing leak surveys, on we have a schedule for doing them. And yeah, Josh, if he wants to jump in here.
Wayne, so I think you're asking if we're estimating or extrapolating an unknown leak count and emissions for parts of the territory that we don't survey within a particular year. And the answer to that is yes, we do extrapolate unknown leaks and emissions based on what we're seeing in the parts that we do survey.
Yeah, so that way gives you some kind of more realistic idea, the number of leaks, even though you don't know exactly yet, but the number of leaks going to include that kind of unsurveyed territory, correct, Josh?
Correct. In unsurveyed territory, we're estimating how many leaks, would have been found had we surveyed.
I don't think that really plays a part in your dashboard is dealing with actual leaks that you found. I think the process of estimating unknown leaks is something that's done in another part of your NGLA program where you're just trying to come up with your estimate. But this is really addressing actual leaks, where you're finding them, when they're getting repaired, what's been prioritized for repair. I wouldn't think it makes sense to try to put a number in your leak dashboard about your unknown leak estimation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this tool doesn't run algorithms to predict where we're going to have this.
How how refined your grid can be to know certain location, the number of leaks by zip code?
Yeah, that's how it's published. So it's publicly available, leaks by zip code.
Right,
And then
because you have a public facing leak map that has been
It's
available
by
for
zip
many
code, yes, for a
years, and
while.
I assume that this data feeds into that.
Yes, they both use the same data source.
and then where in the process your QA QC enter into this process? Well,
You mean where
let
do-
me give you an example. You probably identify a certain leak, but when you reface it or you do something else more closely, apparently that a false positive or could be a false negative that you miss. So where in the process that your QA QC enters before you for sure enter it into your dashboard?
Yeah, and that process takes place at our district level. So every leak that's discovered within a certain area, that district is responsible for QA, QCing that leak to make sure that every leak that they've discovered through survey, every leak that they fixed matches up with what's in our database.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
That one GIS view you showed us seems very thickly populated. I think you said you have it in mind to be able to sort of filter that by leak severity or magnitude. Is that something you're working on, or is that already available?
Yeah, no, and I mean, yeah, I mean, that shows our whole service territory. So I mean, that map is gonna look, clustered. We're constantly, I believe that our inventory of active leaks, I think that, we have cut that down by probably 3/4 from when we first started this program. So that map that you saw used to be a lot more.
Even more.
Even more, yeah. So it's gotten a lot better. But you're seeing the whole service territory.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's nice to give you a snapshot, but I think it's always going to look like that in our system. But the nice is to drill down into an area, and see what's going on.
It sounds like maybe one filter you could apply would be just show me your DT plus leak.
That's where we're headed.
Location.
Yeah, that's going to give us
I
most
see.
bang for our buck. So yeah, we're really excited about that part of the program.
And just for those that are maybe newer to the program, my understanding of your decision tree process was came out of the desire to be able to identify very large leaks quickly, be able to prioritize them, where you didn't have a lot of faith in, say, like a mobile detection process for identifying those, because you've tried some research early on, and you just didn't feel like you could have high enough confidence on your system for that method of detecting large leaks. So this decision tree kind of came out of what other things could we pursue that would help us get a handle on where we have a potentially large leak.
Yeah, and Eric can
Eric Rodriguez from Gas.
he can talk about that.
On that. We thought that would be a more cost-effective approach to being able to estimate the relative size of a leak, because these are measurements with tools that we already have.
Right.
Field, while they're grading, we're just taking a couple of extra points. So from a cost perspective, it's very low cost to add on.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. For the next presentation, I'd like to invite up PG&E. Are you? Okay. I'll just have to give you a moment to plug in. Battery.
Right. All right. My name's Kevin Pease. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Kevin Pease. I'm an engineer in PG&E's greenhouse gas emission strategies team. It's my first winter workshop, so happy to be here and nice to meet you all. Over the last, oh, there we go. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Yeah, over the last year, we've been working on a project to streamline the reporting process for the natural gas leak abatement report. And I'm going to be sharing the details of that work. I'm so sorry. I just locked myself out. I thought that was going to make
No worries.
presentation mode.
Yeah, unfortunately, we only have the PDF, so. Too sure if there is an option.
It'll be okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So what I'll be covering is the motivation for this project, the vision that we have for it when it's fully implemented, and the current state of where we're at right now today. And I'll provide one illustrative use case for how our improved data platform will benefit the emissions reporting at PG&E. So, preparing the natural gas leak abatement report is one of the most time-consuming processes that my team supports. It takes several weeks for subject matter experts to compile their data, provide it to us, and see the kind of current process on the left, where subject matter experts or SMEs, they curate the data, they send it to us. We have to have a back and forth exchange, clarifying details, making sure units are well understood, and we process that, and we will send it back to them for a review and their final approval before we're sending it out. Our team, we receive that data from the SMEs, we process it, we apply filters, formulas, calculations, and in the end, the stakeholders receive an annual report once per year. It's useful for comparing data year over year, but it's hard to make insights within a year to make programmatic changes, decisions based on data. And so that's the motivation. And to put some scale behind the complexity of the process as it is, we work with about 27 different subject matter experts, each providing different Excel worksheets. There are over 60 of those that get compiled into the various appendices. It's a weeks-long process to prepare all that data and quite manual in the process. And in the end, again, we just have a snapshot that exists for 1 year's worth of data, and kind of hard to put into practice a lot of improvements with just that single data point. So our vision for a more uniform data platform for the natural gas leak abatement reporting, we would have a single source of truth for all of the data that goes into the appendices. The appendices could be automatically generated, and we would internally have dashboards available. So operational teams and leaders as well could check on performance metrics, KPIs, how are we doing against our baseline emissions levels. The design should be dynamic. So it should accommodate any changes in emissions factors, calculation methodologies, and it should be refreshable on demand or on automatically. and generally just support data-informed decision-making throughout the business in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. Our internal stakeholders, instead of providing the data in manual exports from different systems of record, SMEs would be reviewing and approving data, and they could be more engaged in the process and understanding what does this data mean. Our team, greenhouse gas emission strategies, will be free to pursue different programs to reduce emissions instead of taking several months to prepare the data for a once annually report. And then leadership will have greater visibility into the progress of our natural gas leak abatement program. So the current state is that we have made good progress toward our vision. We plan to complete the project this year, and so we'll have a lot of similar capabilities as was just presented, including geospatial analytics. We currently have 20 refreshable data sets, and we're able to provide monthly metrics for internal KPI tracking. These 20 data sets correspond to the leak OIR appendices in categories like leaks, damages, and vented component emissions. We are currently doing quality control and standardization of these data sets. We will be compiling the 2025 reporting year appendices using both the previous and the new method and comparing the results to validate the accuracy. And then as we've been going through this process, we're involving all the subject matter experts, and some of them have found value in the project. For example, the leak repair scheduling team, they worked with us to finalize all the logic that goes into the emissions from different kinds of leaks in our system. And they are now using a variation of a data set that they're able to schedule the leak repairs from an output of our project. And lastly, we are incorporating at PG&E the principles of lean. And so we're able to incorporate the metrics from these data sets into our daily operating reviews to we'll be able to detect anomalies. Maybe we could have early detection of unusual large leaks, and just to better track our progress throughout the year instead of just relying on that once per year snapshot. So this is just one example of how we can envision this platform benefiting emissions reporting. And this might be a little bit technical, so I'll walk through it, but this case is about the emissions that are the emission factors that we can apply for distribution pipeline leaks. We have a program called the super emitter program. There's a vehicle with mounted methane sensors that drives the territory. And when there's an indication, it can estimate the leak rate of a leak. And so on the map, we have in blue the field of view of the super emitter survey. And then there are three different icons, and it's a little bit difficult to see the difference between some of them, but in the top right, there's a large red circle that represents a super emitter. Then we have a second category with middle of the range emission factor, which we call the average emission factor, and those are represented by the pink circles, small pink circles, and then a third emission factor, which we call non-super emitters. And so in that case, we can say that we're confident that the super emitter survey was applicable to that leak, that it was looking for it, and it did not find evidence of a super emitter leak. And so the current reporting methodology for this is that we estimate the fraction of our pipeline miles that are covered by the AMLD Advanced Mobile Leak Detection Survey. And then for the leaks that are super emitters, those would be super emitters. But the fraction of leaks that are not super emitters, and we would assign the non-super emitter leak factor to the proportion of the service territory covered by the leak survey. The ones that would be, we would say, some fraction of the pipeline system was not covered by the super emitter survey. Those would get the average emission factor higher than the fraction covered by the survey. That's how it's done currently. And with this improved reporting platform, we're able to tell specifically for every leak if the super emitter survey should be applicable or not. So geospatial applicability, we have the polygons of the field of view of the survey, and we have the location of the leak. And so we can determine, was the leak within or outside of that leak survey field of view? And then we can also, we know the sequence of events. We have the leak discovery date, we have the report date for the super emitter survey, and we have the repair date. And with those three things, we can determine if the super emitter survey is applicable to a particular leak. So if a leak was found before the survey took place and it was not repaired before the survey date, then the super emitter should be applicable. The super emitter survey should be applicable to that leak. And so we should be able to apply directly for every given leak, whether a leak should get the non-super emitter emission factor or the average emission factor. So this should improve our accuracy in our emissions reporting. This is just one use case, but a lot of potential. And I think kind of heading in the same direction as SoCal Gas and being able to help the operations teams utilize data more effectively, prioritizing larger leaks for the repair more quickly. As Shrikant already mentioned earlier, prioritizing the Class C leaks, or I'm sorry, Class B over Class Cs, and just kind of following in that trend to make the biggest emissions reduction. And so that's my last slide. Yeah, thanks for having me here, and happy to take any questions.
I see our favorite querent, Win, would like to ask a question.
If anybody would like to ask question, I would rather go second or third.
Looks like you're on, Win.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. When I hear you, especially the last slides about determining whether certain leaks, especially in the unsurveyed territory, they could potentially become super emitter, and then to be able to predict and then go out and confirm. That kind of steps remind me with what is going on right now, what we call artificial intelligence. And then also going back to your first slide that, okay, here is the purpose, all kind of stuff. Has AI entered into your work? And if so, how much this going to change what is going on and what you just described right now?
There is no AI involved in what I'm presenting here. I think that in the future, that's something that we could, look at, maybe perhaps build upon what we have here. But at this time, this is all just calculations and data processed in a more useful way.
If I may add, we don't predict whether it's a super emitter or non-super emitter. We just use the field of view to classify it, whether it's within the field of view or outside the field of view.
Yeah. Thank you, Sammy.
Thank you.
and CPC. Just as a clarification question, you said there's 20 data sets. Does that mean there's 20 separate distinct databases that produce the data set?
No, so we've connected to over 100, about 105 different data sources, and they've been compiled and merged into 20 different data sets that represent different aspects of the leak OIR appendices. And so some of these data sets can be applied to more than one section. I would call it an appendix section. So if we have, I think, vented components, for example, we can put vented components from compressor stations, transmission stations, and M&R stations all in the same data set. And we'll have a column that would say what facility type or asset type that belongs in, what appendix that belongs in. And so we're almost to the point where we can have all of our data for the leak OIR process kind of automatically compiled for us. Did that answer the question?
Yes, in a way.
Okay.
I was just curious as to whether or not your data sources or, you said data sets, but there's 100 sources. Are those autonomous sources or are they sources that use the same underlying data in a data repository in your system?
Yeah, so generally we're connecting to source data systems. So in the previous way we would do this, a subject matter expert would run a report out of, for example, SAP as one system of record and send us that Excel file export. And now our system connects directly to SAP.
Okay, so when you say data sets, there are different reports that you use to extract the data to generate the information within the appendices.
Yeah, so the different appendices kind of have different templates, different requirements for what data needs to go into them. And the data sets are aligned to kind of mirror those appendices. So we have data sets on transmission pipeline leaks, which have a little bit of a different flavor, so to speak, than distribution pipeline leaks.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Yep. Anybody else?
That's really interesting to hear. I don't think on our side, we've ever thought about the kind of effort you all go through to compile these reports. So it's a real eye opener. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. At this point in time, we have scheduled our lunch break. So we will be reconvening. We'll be shooting for 1 p.m. Return on lunch. So for now, I'm going to mute the online and pause the recording. Thank you.